All right. Freedom looks good on you. Yeah. Hey, look, I was backstage and, I was dancing and don't tell everybody. Actually, I thought I was dancing. Carol was like, "What are you doing, Mac?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm dancing." She said, "No, I've seen dancing before. That ain't dancing." So I almost came out, but she stopped me, so that was a good thing, evidently. I've learned to pay attention to God's Spirit who lives in me today as it talks to my spirit, because it tells me some things to do that I could have missed out on if I was just operating on my own show. And I brought this back out again because I want us to remember that all of us have been declared not guilty, right? But as I was thinking about that this morning, I was going to let it sit here, but I thought, I don't know why I thought this, but there's somebody out there that is really struggling with living in God's grace and accepting the freedom and the forgiveness that He has for you. Is that person out there this morning? Right there. Come here, my friend. I want to give you this gavel, and every time you have a hard time accepting God's forgiveness and the freedom He's given you, I want you to remember that you've been declared not guilty. There you go. All right, here we go. I'm so blessed to be part of this big CR family, but it started with some smaller Celebrate Recovery families, and I have two of my immediate family here this morning. Woodland Park, Colorado, where are you? There they are back there. So that's Lee and Jeannie Chapin are the ministry leaders there, and if you're ever in Woodland Park on a Monday night, send me your testimony. I'll get it to them. We would love for you to give your testimony at the highest Celebrate Recovery in the world, right? It's 9,000 feet, not marijuana high. I mean, come on. Just bring your oxygen tank because you'll need it when you're speaking up there. Then my other family, my other immediate family is Whites Ferry Road. Where are you guys? That's right. And so, my Whites Ferry Road Celebrate Recovery family is where I started in Celebrate Recovery. And if you are anywhere near West Monroe, Louisiana, that's northeast Louisiana. They're above I-10, so it's a bunch of Yankees up there in Louisiana. Yeah. If you're anywhere near West Monroe, make sure you go there on a Friday night because they have big fun. Yeah. And I'll tell you this. If you're there on the last Friday night of the month, my brother, who is here today, is going to be doing chip night, and it is something you don't want to miss. Yeah, you don't want to miss that. Brian and Derek are the ministry leaders there. They'd probably love to hear your testimony too, so send that to them. And by the way, I looked out yesterday. I'm speaking up here. I didn't know my brother was going to be here, and I looked out, and he's sitting right there. I'm like, good night. He didn't even tell me he was here. Raise your hand, David. Yeah, that's my younger brother who actually made a lot better choices than I did in life, so he's been a good example to me. But it's good to have blood family who are in recovery. It's good to be in recovery with family together. And actually, when I say my brother, he's my triple brother because he's my brother by blood. We were born from the same mom and dad. He's my brother-in-law. We married sisters. That was really weird. Yeah. Our kids don't know who they belong to. And then he's my brother in Christ. So if you see David today, give him a yeah. So we're going to be looking at part 2 today of Come Back to Honesty. And yesterday I left you with some signs that point us to dishonesty and what happens when we get into that cycle of being dishonest. And those signs were, first of all, denial. I really don't have a problem. Then it was diminishing. Well, it's really not that bad when we finally admit we have a problem. And then deflecting, well, if you would have been who you need to be, then I wouldn't have done what I did. So those are 3 warning signs that we need to watch out for when we are in our recovery and we start seeing signs of dishonest things coming up in our lives. You know, all of these things that I just talked about will lead to our eventual downfall as we are in our recovery, and they will derail everything we're trying to do. So yesterday we started with this. With lack of accountability comes the compromise of values. And that's an important statement to memorize, commit to memory. You know, each one of us need each other. No one can do this alone. Today, here's where I'd like to pick up. With accountability and honesty comes freedom, what Johnny just talked about. With accountability and honesty comes true freedom. You know, earlier this year I was out cutting some firewood and I'd forgotten my safety glasses at the house. So I got back in my truck and I was in a hurry, so I drove back to the house, got out of my truck, ran into the house, and I'd parked on the side of the garage, so I ran through the garage and into the house, and we have a dog run in between the two, so my truck's now on one side, I'm running through, and I get to the other side where I'm going to go through the house, and I noticed when I got on the other side, my truck is now on the other side, and I'm not in it. And I thought, okay, this is not going to be good. And we live in the mountains, so there's no really flat ground where we live. So now my truck is rolling past the garage, and it's going down the hill that's on the other side of the garage. And the first thing it does is it takes out 4 pretty little aspen trees that were right on the side of the garage, just takes them out, and it keeps on going. So immediately, here's what I do. I start running after the truck, right? Because I'm going to catch this truck. I am going to open the door, and I'm going to jump in, and I'm going to stop this truck. That's what I'm going to do. And I'm running as fast as I can, and I'm beside the driver's door as I'm running as fast as I can run, and I'm about ready to make my move, which looking back probably would have been the worst thing I could have done, trying to jump into this runaway truck. And in my mind, I actually saw myself doing that. But as I was running by the truck, thank God that he has ways of circumventing my dumb ideas. I'm really proud of that. But as I was running past the truck, I could hear the sound that in that moment I thought was the worst sound ever. And I'm running, I'm about to make my move, and all of a sudden I hear click. The doors just locked. Because the truck had made enough speed for that particular function now to take action, right? So I'm running and the door is locked and I'm like, no! Well, needless to say, I came to the immediate realization that running after the truck was no longer going to be an option. So I just stopped and I watched it roll down the hill, through a fence, through a pasture, across a ditch, and finally about a quarter mile away, it came to a stop. Well, I knew there were some things I needed to do. I needed to, first of all, stop and assess the damage. Well, I went to the side of the house where it came by first. Fortunately, it did not run into the house, so that was good. No damage there. But next were those 4 aspen trees. You know, I'd been taking care of these things. I mean, I've been mowing around them. I've been trimming them. They looked really good over there. And now I have 4 very lovely aspen stumps beside my house. Next, the fence. The year before, this fence had been in really bad shape. It was in disarray. It would not hold livestock in. So I'd went in, I'd put new post up, new wire. I mean, I stretched everything. It was immaculate. It was a great fence. Well, now, needless to say, the wire was down. It ran over a post. The post was broke. And so the fence was now in about the shape it was the year before I started to fix it. Next, I went down and looked at my truck. The headlights were gone. The bottom fairing was gone. It was still running. I just wouldn't be able to see at night now. Other than that, it was a quarter mile away from the house, running, locked, and I did not know where a spare key was. So I walked back to the house, spent the next hour or so looking for a key. I finally found it, walked back to the truck, and unlocked it. And you might be thinking, what does this have to do with recovery? Well, first of all, in the truck, if I would have just put the brake on, none of this would have happened, right? But I was in such a hurry. How many of you get in a hurry with your recovery? Yeah, we want everything right now. Like Johnny or somebody was talking about yesterday, we start on step 1 and we're ready to go to step 12 next week, right? We get in a hurry with our recovery when we need to be putting the brakes on. So I thought about this in my recovery, and what does it have to do with honesty? You know, when I stop being honest with myself and when I'm not accountable to others because I've isolated myself, because I'm doing things on my own, and I see the signs we mentioned before, denial, diminish, deflect, my life is headed for a crash. Oh, it's going to start off slow. It always starts off slow. It's never just boom, crash, you're there. It starts off slow. And what happens is it picks up speed pretty quickly. And like those little aspen trees, the people around me are the people that suffer the most. Because all of a sudden I see the people that say they love me and they start to question the things I'm doing in my life, and I start to think, you know what? I don't know if I like them or not. And I end up taking them off at the knees, right? I just write them off. Don't raise your hands, but how many of you write people off in here? That's not biblical, by the way. Oh, I've been there. I've had some heartache in my life this year where the first thing I want to do is write some people off. But that's not what God says do. And then much like the fence that my truck took out, all the boundaries that I worked so hard on, those tools of recovery that I've been putting into my life, all of a sudden these boundaries are not there. Because boundaries are for the weak. I got this. And then like my headlights that are no longer in my truck, things start to get very dark in my life really quickly. And I wander away from the very light that changed my life in the first place. And I wonder, what am I doing? Because at this point, I've got two options. I can let pride rule and say to myself, I'm not going back to others, because if I do, if I admit that I was wrong, what will they think? And I continue down the road to destruction. That's one option. The second option is where we can go back to where we started and we can look for those keys. The keys that open the doors to my recovery in the first place. And return to that place where we found freedom in the very beginning. In doing this, I'm going to humbly, not arrogantly, but humbly go back to my accountability partners and my sponsor and admit that I was wrong. And again, you don't have to raise your hands here for sure. How many of you have a hard time admitting that you're wrong? You rebels. Yeah. People raising their hand everywhere. You know, me too. Well, guess what? Me too. It's hard to admit we're wrong. You know, we say in Celebrate Recovery all the time, there's no shame in coming back. The shame is if you don't make it back and don't turn back to the love, the Savior, the salvation, the family that's been given you. You know, Rodney said yesterday, and I love this, the recovery plan is still the same, even when you relapse. Right? Come back. So, I want to talk to you then about some things that I believe an honest life is going to involve. And this is for every one of us. And by the way, I'll just tell you this. This year, when we were getting ready to get our talks ready, and they said, they asked us on that team, what talks do you want to do this year? I immediately raised my hand. Come back to honesty. Why? Because you needed to hear that? I don't know if you do or not, but you know who did need to hear it? I did. So everything I talked to you about yesterday and today is because I needed to hear this. Remember, Philippians 1:6, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in us will carry it on to completion and the completion date is when Jesus Christ comes back. I've told you before, last time I checked, he's not back. So that means we all, starting with me, got work to do. And for me, it was in this area of my life. So, things I need to do to start being honest. First of all, number one, stop being offended. This is probably a good place to start writing stuff down. Stop being offended. Man, everybody I know, it gets offended so easily over everything now. Are you kidding me? James 1:19 says this, my dear friends, you should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to get angry. You know, if your accountability partner or your sponsor comes to you and says, you know, I've noticed some areas in your life that are giving me some concern, and you immediately get offended, guess what? Here's what you have just affirmed. When you say, I dare you. I can't believe you'd ask me that. You roll your eyes, whatever it is. In my mind, you just let me know 100% sure that what I was concerned about is happening. You know, I told Mary years ago when I first got into recovery, God gives me these moments of clarity, and then after I say things, sometimes I'm like, ooh, was that really a good idea? But here's what I told her. It was a good idea, by the way. I said, look, if I get angry, defensive, or offended when you ask me what I've been doing, what I've been up to, or who I've been doing it with, I'm telling you right now, I'm up to no good. I was serious, and I told her this. You know, that gave her a lot of peace of mind. I told her this. The next thing that came out of my mouth was, call my sponsor. So I just gave her permission to do that in my life. You know what? I've never taken that back. So she still has permission today to do that. The second thing, be truthful. Be truthful. Ephesians 4:25 says this, we are part of the same body. I love it the way it says it here because it's really clear. It says, stop lying and start telling the truth to each other. That's pretty clear, isn't it? Not much. I don't really have to wonder what that means. Stop lying. Be truthful. You know, an honest person tells the truth in every situation. Remember, like we talked about, John said yesterday, I write this to you so you will not sin. In every situation. Same thing here. An honest person tells the truth all the time. Starting with being truthful to ourselves. That's where it's got to start, right? I've got to be truthful to me. That can be the hardest person to be truthful to sometimes. I don't like to hear what I have to say. Have you? Somebody else doesn't either. Have you ever lied and then thought to yourself later, oh, well, I didn't know that was a lie? Just speaking for myself, I've never done that. I've never looked back and thought, yeah, I didn't know that was a lie. Now, I've said things like, well, if I tell the truth, it might hurt their feelings. Or if I tell the truth, they'll think less of me. Or if I tell the truth, I'll let them down. I hate to say this, but none of those are an excuse to be untruthful. None of those. Maybe you need to be quiet. You know, I tell people all the time, the best 2 words I ever taught myself, you ready? Hey, write this down. The best 2 words I ever taught myself were, shut up. Not to tell somebody else, it was for me. Because usually when I tell myself that in 5 minutes, I'm like, whoo, I'm glad I didn't say that. You know, you might be thinking right now, Mac, you are making this really hard. Which, by the way, I've come to believe that is 100% true. Being truthful all the time. That's hard work. It is for me. I don't know about you guys. But it's hard to watch everything that I say and make sure it's the truth. You know, if you're in a conversation and you feel a need to lie or be dishonest, maybe you just need to take a second and examine your emotions, your intentions. And I know this is going to seem awkward at first, to just take a minute before you respond by thinking of an answer, because if I don't answer quickly, you might be thinking, oh, they're going to think I wasn't paying attention or I didn't care what they're saying. Quite the contrary with me. If somebody that I know takes a second before they respond to something that I've asked them, I know they're listening to me because they're taking a minute to formulate an answer instead of just giving the first thing that comes off their lips. So, 5 or 10 seconds of reflection can make the difference between an honest answer and a lie. And I really believe that when we're not honest with people, more often than not, it's not our intention to betray them or hurt them. I really believe that we're just trying to maybe avoid getting in an argument or to avoid an issue that I'm not prepared to talk about. So we just lie quickly. We are dishonest quickly. The only problem with that is that one lie always leads to another, right? And they don't get smaller as they go, right? Oh, I'll lie now and the next one will be small. No, they get bigger. The scale graduates upwards, right? You know, we have to remove the assumption that even if I think it will make people feel better, I need to avoid lying to them. Even if we think it'll make them feel better, I need to avoid that. Because I don't know about you, but I would rather be told the truth and hurt just a little bit than find out later you've been lying to me the whole time, because the hurt gets a whole lot bigger when I find that out. Next, take responsibility. Proverbs 28:13 says this: a man who refuses to admit his mistakes can never, all right. Can never, that doesn't leave out any time, right? Can never be successful. But if he confesses and forsakes them, he gets another chance. Boy, that's what Celebrate Recovery is all about, right? Another chance. You know what? God came up with that first. Yeah, God came up with that first. So own your mistakes. Do you ever remember being caught in a lie as a kid and then you tried to hide your mistake? I mean, there's things that come to my mind very quickly. I'm going to tell a story here, just a real quick one. And David, I'll ask you later if you remember this because you were part of it, but it was about 60 years ago almost. So anyway. So I'll never forget my dad leaving my brother and I in our old Volkswagen bus while he went inside a store to get some groceries. And for some reason, this old Volkswagen van, the windshield wipers and how they worked really intrigued me. I don't know why, but I really just was really intrigued by the way they wouldn't stop over here. They always stopped down here in the down position. I thought, why? If you turned the car off at just the right time, wouldn't they stop over here? So I told my brother, and by the way, I'll never know why my dad left the keys in the car with two boys under 9 years old. I think that's kind of illegal today. So I told my brother, I tell you what, you turn on the windshield wipers, I'm going to hang out this window, and when they get to this side, I'm going to grab them, and as soon as I grab them, you turn the key off, okay? He said, gotcha. So that's what I did. I grabbed them windshield wipers, but he, David, didn't turn them off quick enough. And all I heard when I grabbed that windshield wiper was snap, I'm thinking, this is not a good sound. Well, the windshield wipers weren't going back to the middle now. They hung off the side. Yeah. My dad came back to the car, and the windshield wipers were limply hanging over the side of the van, and he said, "What happened here?" To which I replied, "This starts at an early age. You know that?" I replied, "I don't know." He said, "You don't know who broke the windshield wipers?" I said, "No, sir, I sure don't." Well, that lie and my actions cost my family. You know what I'll never forget? I'll never forget him showing me a $20 bill and saying, "This is what it's going to cost to fix the windshield wipers." And back in those days, he said, this $20 would have fed our family for 4 days. And then because in those days it was not illegal to give your child a whooping, I got a whooping like I never got before. And you know what? I don't know if it caused me any irreversible harm, that whooping, but I'll tell you this, I never touched them windshield wipers again. You know, it would seem, too, to me that some of us have not outgrown our affinity to hiding our mistakes. You know, a child hides their mistakes. We can use that as a life lesson. But when we carry this behavior into our adulthood, we find very little tolerance for hiding our mistakes. So when you make a mistake, own up to it. Don't cover it up. I think you will be surprised at the respect you will gain by owning your mistakes and not cover them up. And by the way, that's CR, right? You know, I mean, we hear the most messed up testimony of a person and we give them a standing ovation, right? That goes into our next point, transparency. 1 John 1:8. Being transparent. If we say we have no sin, we're only fooling ourselves and refusing to accept the truth. You know, be transparent. That's one of the things that I hear most about why people love Celebrate Recovery. I hear people say, that's right. You guys are crazy. I hear people say things like, you know, this is how the church should be, right? And when I hear them say that, I'm thinking, hold it. This is the church. You realize the church is meeting today, right? Don't ever, if whatever church you're a part of, don't ever separate yourself from them because we're all in this together. And by the way, when I hear people say that this ought to be the church, and I tell them we are the church because it's in our brokenness that we get to help the rest of the church, right? Look, I've said this so many times, probably everybody in here has heard it, but one of my favorite things that one of the pastors at our church said years ago when somebody said, you know, what's different about this church? Something's going on here. And he said, when the drug addicts got here, they taught the rest of us how to be honest. So don't ever doubt this. God only uses broken people. But in your brokenness, don't get arrogant. Don't get arrogant. We were trusted with a message of showing other people how honesty can bring true freedom. Guard that message and share it with others. You know, transparency to me is really the practice of being open and honest. Woo-hoo. You're not going to like this. No matter what the consequences might be, or how challenging it might be. That's real transparency. When we do it, even if. When I'm honest, even when. That's hard. I know it's hard. You know, if you want relationships to thrive, transparency is going to be the key. There's nothing worse to me than to find out somebody is who they have not portrayed themselves to be. That's the worst. That's the worst. How many religious leaders have you seen have a fall because they said they were one thing, but really they were something else? And then they end up taking a lot of people down with them. Honesty would have just taken care of that. Or after they die, we find out all this junk about them. Boy, it breaks my heart when that happens. Here's another thing I told Mary years ago. I said, when I die, you will not find anything that will embarrass or hurt you. Because, hold on. Because of Celebrate Recovery, you already know everything. So thank you, Celebrate Recovery. You know, one of the biggest compliments I ever got was when somebody said, you know, I've been watching you, and you are the same person on Sunday morning and Friday night at Celebrate Recovery that you are during the week. Would you tell me more about this? That's the best thing anybody ever said about me. Hey, that's why I got into this, because I saw people who were the same on Sunday and Friday or whatever night you meet as they were during the week. And I thought, now that's something I can get behind. I want to be a part of that. In a world of fakes and frauds, people are looking for authentic people. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for people who speak the truth and then live by what they speak. That's what people are looking for. And we can find it right here in Celebrate Recovery. You know, people will listen to what you have to say when they see you're walking just like you talk. They'll listen to you. Next is be thoughtful. You know, when people I looked at the time right there and it says 0. So I got totally thrown off. But now what I'm thinking is it's never been on. So I'm going to keep going. All right, be thoughtful. Be thoughtful. When you talk, this is Ephesians 4:29, when you talk, don't say harmful things, but say what people need to hear. Words that will help others become stronger. Do you get that? Then what you say will do good to everybody who listens to you. You know, when I was in the 7th grade, I had a shop teacher who wrote something on the chalkboard, and I'll never forget what he wrote. I was in the 7th grade. By the way, never discount what you do or say today, because it may impact people for a lifetime, for their lifetime. I was in the 7th grade when he wrote this statement down, and I think about it to this very day. He was an older gentleman. I can still see his hand writing this on the chalkboard, and it said this: engage brain before opening mouth. You know, that's something I think about a whole awful lot. You know, I hear people in recovery circles say that they're going to be brutally honest in what they tell the people they sponsor or other people in recovery. And my response is this: you know, honesty without being thoughtful, that's just cruelty. You know, being brutally honest. I can be assertive, but I don't have to be aggressive today. I can let people know that I sponsor what I expect out of them or what worked for me without being mean to them. You know, before being honest with somebody with information that could hurt them, we need to think our words through. That's very important. We need to ask ourselves, are the words I'm about to say, if we're looking at that scripture in Ephesians 4:29, it says, for me, my words need to build others up, right? So if I'm looking at that scripture, I ask myself, am I the things I'm about to say, are they going to be sensitive? Are they going to be accurate? Am I going to be able to say them with love? Because if I'm not, I need to regroup and start over. You know, you can be right about what you're going to say. Listen to this, you can be right about what you're going to say and be totally wrong in the way you say it. Mary, my wife, knows I'm a cabinet maker. She's been with me a while. She knows I'm a cabinet maker, and she knows I like math. So she gave me a mathematical equation for this. You know what it is? Right plus rude equals wrong. Every time. Every time. I don't need to be rude today. So when you're about to tell somebody the truth that could be a little risky, think it through. Maybe not once or twice, maybe 3 times before you say it. Remember, it's always better to err on the side of kindness and compassion rather than be seen as a person that beats people up with the truth. I don't want to be that person today, and I don't think you do either. So, be nice. And last, be accountable. You know, just as iron sharpens iron, a person sharpens the character of his friend. Proverbs 27:17. You know, this is where we started yesterday when we agreed that with lack of accountability comes the compromise of values. Today we started with this. With accountability coupled with honesty comes true freedom. So why is accountability so important to this cornerstone principle of recovery? Well, remember, for me, I had spent a lot of my life filling my mind with things that made my mind a bad neighborhood, not a good place for me to be, with negative, evil, ungodly thoughts. I was going to need someone. Actually, I was going to need several someones in my life to help me on this journey. Sam Silverstein said this: I believe that accountability is the basis of all meaningful human achievement. In other words, without accountability, I won't get much done. And this includes my recovery. I need you. And by the way, I told a crowd the other day, maybe it was the state reps, but I need you so much, you're stuck with me for eternity. Yeah. So how do I get started? Because you know what? Finding an accountability partner can be a pretty daunting task to some of us who have never done that before. We might be new to recovery, and we're thinking, how would we ever find someone that would actually want to be my accountability partner? Well, I'm telling you, it's really simple. It's really simple. Next time you go to Open Share Group and you hear somebody sharing about victories that you would like to have in your life, here's what you do. It's going to be, well, get ready. Here's what you do. You just go up to them and say, can I have your phone number? That's it. You know what? I've never been to a Celebrate Recovery where somebody said, nope, sure can't. At your Open Share Group, when you find somebody sharing things that you like, that you want in your life, ask them to be your accountability partner. I guarantee you they will be proud to do that. Because one thing we know is that when we get into recovery, service is another one of those cornerstone principles, right? We serve others because we were served when we got here. You know, the second thing I would do is say, write down an accountability statement of your own. For those of you that know me, you know I got a Bible verse in my back pocket. Oh, man, that microphone's got it all hemmed up in there. Hang on. There we go. So here's my verse for this morning. Share each other's troubles and problems, and so obey the Lord's command. We're in this together. Wow, that fit along with the lesson today. Okay, good. So anyway, write down a recovery statement for yourself. And keep that with you in your wallet, your purse, whatever. Just keep it on a 3x5 card in your back pocket. When it wears out, write it down. If you look at it several times during the day, it's not going to last long. You might have to write it down every day. But write down something that will remind you of the path you're on. In other words, something like this: I need to be accountable today because my thinking got me in a pretty big mess. I need people I can count on, and I want the plan that God intended for my life. Those are things that are good, positive reinforcements that we need to be putting in our minds. So write down a recovery statement, something you want to gain from recovery, and keep that with you. All right. So there you have it. Honesty. Stop being offended. Be truthful. Take responsibility. Be transparent. Be thoughtful. And be accountable. This is the counter. This is the counter to diminishing, denying, and deflecting. You know, honesty is worth every bit of the work you put into it. It's worth it. You sleep good. You find true freedom. You guys have been great. I love coming out here because you really are a family. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. See, that's what I'm talking about. You guys are the best. I am really a messed up person, so I really appreciate that. Thank you for blessing my life with your recovery journey. Seriously, I really appreciate that. Now, I get to do something really, really fun here. That was pretty fun, but this is really fun. I get to introduce to you the people of Celebrate Recovery that lead this hope-filled ministry. You're going to be amazed when I ask the folks to come out that I asked to come out, how many people are here to serve you. I'm going to start with our national team, and if our national team would start making their way out, we have on that national team regional directors. There's so many of them now I can't even name them all because I'd probably leave somebody out. So our national team, starting with regional directors, national team members, ministry directors, national directors, global directors, executive directors, co-founders. Yeah, thank you. Whew. That's just the leaders of leaders right there. Now, before I introduce this next group of people to you, I just want to say this. You know, if someone comes to you and says, for X amount of dollars, we're going to help you start Celebrate Recovery, I'm going to tell you one thing about them. They are not with us. Because everybody with us volunteers their time to serve each and every one of you. The next group of people that I want to introduce are the ones that are boots on the ground. They're there every day for you guys. You give them a phone call. They'll be glad to come to your Celebrate Recovery, answer your questions, whatever it is you need them to do to help you in your Celebrate Recovery and for that to grow. And Pastor John said this for years. These people are the glue that holds Celebrate Recovery together. So I really encourage you, I'm going to encourage you to make sure you get with your state reps. State reps, come on out. You're going to be freak out. How many of you? Come on out. Max. Oh, yeah. Get ready because they're going to keep coming. I'm backing up now. Whoop. Hey, how you doing? Look, they're coming in from everywhere. Hey, my brother. How you doing, man? Good to see you. How you doing? Good to see you. Oh, yeah, they're coming. Come on, Amanda. Come on, yeah. Yeah.